Previously, a very determined girl began transforming her living room to resemble that of an English cottage. Sconces were revived, walls were painted, and lampshades were being pleated to channel the coziness of a Nancy Meyers film. But even with those few steps behind her, the work was far from over. It was beginning to look like a proper cottage. Almost. The sconces glowed, the walls stood freshly painted, but the space itself was in a state of limbo. Not quite done, not quite livable. Somewhere between a vision and a very well-intentioned mess. Like any good English cottage, this one needed layers. Books and tea, and just enough clutter to say a person lives here. It needed more character, more charm, more something besides stacks of books and a lingering sense of work in progress. She'd been away from the project longer than she meant to. But now she was back, with a few small treasures tucked into her bag. Just enough to ease back in, to warm up the space and the kettle. So the plan, the bookcases, their identity. The tables and shelves, dressed and adorned as if they had always been there, part of a home well-loved and well-lived in. And the television? Well, that was about to become something else entirely. Alright, technically it would still be a television, but by the end of this, it would have the manners of a painting. And so, the next phase of the cottage began. One frame, one shelf, one carefully placed pillow at a time. They'd been standing there for weeks, like polite house guests with nothing to say. Tall, blank, and quietly very, very IKEA. Functional? Sure, but not exactly charming. She started with the sanding, just enough to scuff the surfaces and to ruffle their factory-finished feathers. Not glamorous work, but there was something deeply satisfying about it. It was like waking them up from a long, flat-packed nap. The real transformation began when the trim was added. A bit of adhesive here, a few finishing nails there. Suddenly, they weren't four strangers anymore. The trim gave them a shared language, like they were all finally in on the same joke. With the primer, things started to feel unified. It wasn't exciting, but it was necessary. It wasn't about being seen, it was about ensuring the next steps would stick. The moment came for the color. Jungle camouflage. The same earthy green as the walls, meant to bring everything together. This color didn't just coat the shelves, it wrapped them in the room's story, making them feel like they had always been a part of the plan. But after all, paint needs patience. A full week of doing absolutely nothing. No styling, no stacking, no sneaky little test objects, just waiting. For her, this was the hardest part. Not the sanding or the painting, but the sitting still. Polyurethane went on in glossy, careful strokes. One last step, she told herself. But the shelves weren't free yet. They needed 3 more days to cure. After 7 full days of waiting for paint to dry, this felt like some sort of endurance trial. 10 days of restraint, and still, no decorating? No, just more waiting. But something inside of her told her she should try. With the curiosity of a cat, she peeked around the corner, thinking to herself, maybe just one book. She was this close to committing a crime of decor. But eventually, the wait gave in. The shelves were dry, and the fun could finally begin. Books found their places, a few candles nestled into their corners. Trinkets returned like old friends, each one nudging the space closer to whole. They still weren't built-ins, not quite. There were gaps, there were ideas, there were future plans. One day, maybe a crown across the top, a footer to anchor the base. But for now, this was enough, more than enough. Because after all the sanding, gluing, priming, painting, and waiting, they didn't just look like they belonged, they felt like they did. And that was worth every dusty, paint-splotched patience-testing minute. Some corners of the room come together slowly. This one started with a pile of frames and a very stubborn nail. Gallery walls don't need a blueprint. Just a little courage, some good enough spacing, and the ability to squint at things from across the room. It all started to make sense. Frames, flowers, a little wall vase. But then there was the TV. While some projects are about practicality, others are about illusion. This one? A little bit of both. Like sewing a top hat in half and hoping a rabbit jumps out, the goal was simple. Make the television disappear. Not literally, this wasn't a magic show, but at least help it pass as something with a little more aristocratic charm. It was kind of like building a puzzle, except the pieces were long and splintery and required an unreasonable amount of glue. Still, things were coming together. Slowly. Elegantly. Sort of. The next morning, it was time to reinforce the illusion. A little structure to back up the style. L brackets, because glamour still needs a skeleton. And then flourish. A decorative nod to drama. Little wooden flourishes like you'd find on a vintage armoire or maybe a well-dressed grandfather clock. The spray paint ritual resumed. First, a base of black to give it depth. Mystery. Then a touch of gold. Not flashy, but bold. The kind of gold that says, I belong in a Jane Austen film adaptation. Once dry, the frame came inside for its final makeover. She rubbed in that Grecian gold like it was a secret passed down from an antique dealer, or an overly dramatic stage mom. And here we observe the inner workings of the disguise. Wood molding to hold it steady on top, and elastic ribbons to embrace the TV like a Regency corset. At last, the moment of transformation. The TV, once an unsociable slab of tech, now wore its Sunday best. Draped in gold, framed like a portrait of a forgotten ancestor who may or may have not invented marmalade. Even the cat seemed to approve, and she's usually a harsh critic. Okay, one last thing before moving on. Because really, what's a TV stand without a little character of its own? Okay, so this might be my most favorite thing that I've bought for the living room renovation. I found this coffee table on Facebook Marketplace for only $65, and the minute I saw it, I knew I had to have it. The engraving on the side is absolutely stunning, and believe it or not, this table is bigger than I am, which means it's taller than I am, which it's not hard to beat because I am short, but it is so long. It's actually longer than our couch, but we have big plans to get a new couch in the near future that I think will look so good with this coffee table. And the details, just look at these floral engravings. It wraps around the entire coffee table, and in the front, there's a drawer that is absolutely gigantic, which means we can store all of our remote controls and technology that we don't want to see. This wood just has so much character to it, and I think it really fits that cottage aesthetic that I'm going for. But since it is from Facebook Marketplace, that means it is used, and not only is it used, it's around, I want to say, 50 years old. It has some stains on the top, which we do plan to stain it at some point, but that's a chore for another day. Even as it is now, though, it is absolutely stunning. I could not imagine finding a better piece for this space, and once we get our couch, it's just going to look even better. But for now, it's time to give the table and the rest of the room a little bit of love. The coffee table, the dining table, the side tables, the tea table, they all need a little TLC, and they need a little bit of styling for that finishing touch for the room. We are getting so close to finalizing this transformation, which has been so much fun, but I'm a little bit tired and I'm ready to just live in this space. And speaking of final touches, I finally found the curtains of my dreams that I think are perfect for this space, and I cannot wait to show those to you. On top of that, I have a little craft that I want to do. I have an old mirror that I think that I can revive with a little bit of paint and maybe some cottagecore charm. So let's move on to those things. I am so excited to share the rest of the video with you. She kept it simple. Books she actually flips through, a tray to make it all feel intentional, and a candle that smells like a summer walk. She wanted to be the kind of person who uses coasters, and with this table, she realized it wasn't optional. One wrong move and the wood held a grudge forever. Next up, curtains. Not the most thrilling task, but sometimes the right fabric can change the whole feeling of a room. She had hunted for ages, trying to find something that felt like it belonged in a cottage fairy tale. Pretty and patterned, but not too heavy and not too precious. If the budget had stretched a little further, maybe something more authentic would have made its way home. But in the end, these felt just right. A little old world, a little new, and the perfect complement to the color already on the walls. And with a few more layers in place, the room was finally starting to feel like the one she'd been dreaming about. Almost there. Just a few more touches and a little craft project still to come. The mirror had been plain for as long as it had been hers. Plain enough that nobody noticed it. But today, that would change. There wasn't a master plan, just a hope that if she trusted her hand and didn't overthink it, the mirror might end up feeling like a page from an old storybook. The colors she'd chosen felt just right. Soft, a little vintage, just whimsical enough to count as cottagecore without trying too hard. Tiny leaves sprouted along the vines, each one slightly different from the next. Little rosebuds and scattered flowers were tucked between them, adding just enough color to make the frame feel alive without overwhelming it. Ray had, of course, decided that this was the perfect moment to supervise. A cat's judgment, as we know, is both highly refined and frequently questionable. She tucked the mirror into the corner behind the tree, knowing that the painted frame would catch the eye during the day, and at night the mirror would reflect the tiny golden lights, making the whole corner feel like a little patch of magic. it didn't happen overnight. More like over several weekends, 2 minor breakdowns, and a very triumphant Facebook Marketplace pickup. But now, it's a room with rhythm. Light lands where it's meant to, colors speak the same language. Nothing's perfect, but everything feels right. It's not just the furniture. It's the way the light catches on the curtain fabric, the bookcases, once humble and flat-packed, now standing proudly, like they've been here for ages, quietly minding the books. The coffee table, charming and slightly too large for the couch, but worth every inch. Give it a candle, a few favorite books, and suddenly it anchors the room like it's always been here. The dining table keeps it simple. A flicker of candlelight, something fresh in the center. It knows its role and it plays it well. Even the TV has cleaned up its act. Disguised as art, flanked by a supporting cast of thrifted charm. The reading chair insists on softness. A blanket, a book, a perch for tea. It's a corner that asks very little and gives just enough. Every surface had its moment. A lamp, a bust of Shakespeare, a bowl of fruit pretending not to pose. Nothing showy, just layers, quiet layers. And then there was the clutter. Not mess, never mess, but a certain kind of curated chaos. She liked it that way. A room with too much blank space just never feels right to her. Sure, there's still a ceiling to fix, and a dream couch out there waiting to make its grand entrance. But the room finally feels like home. I cannot believe we are here. It is finally finished after months of work. The space is almost exactly how I envisioned it. It's soft and cozy and full of personality. Every little piece has come together so beautifully, and I feel so much more at home in here. It's so funny how decorating and creating a cozy space can just have such an impact on your mood. I've always believed that the little details in a room can really make it feel truly special, especially since I'm going for that English eclectic cottage feeling, even if I've never seen one in real life before. It's this mix of personality and coziness, texture and softness that just brings it all together. It's been such a fun journey to create this space and to be able to share it with you all. For the last few months, I have done nothing but thought about this room, and finally I can move on from it. It has been a labor of love, and as much as I enjoyed it, I am ready to move on. I hope that this video has inspired you to embrace the process on any project that you may be planning or doing currently. No matter how small the steps seem, the little details really do make all of the difference. Thank you again so much for watching. I have just really enjoyed this process, and like I said, I really enjoyed sharing it with you. Until next project, I will see you next time.